Here's a question from Jennifer. Brand new here. Just reading as much as possible and observing before I take on the responsibility of beekeeping. How far away from your house or high traffic yard space do you keep your hives? That is a great question. If you're in the country and you have a lot of space, it's not a problem, but a lot of hobby beekeepers have smaller yards, or they're in the city. And it is certainly possible to keep bees near your house or in the city and not have them be a problem. One thing that helps if you are in a residential area and you have to keep your hives close to a high traffic area or close to a neighbor's yard, what I would do is make sure they have a tall fence to go over, or a tall obstacle. That will force their flight path to be a little higher than if you don't have any fence or you just have a wire fence. If you have a wire fence, sometimes they'll fly right through, and if there's a kid running past or a neighbor, or there's a sidewalk as an example, they will fly right into people. And even though they're not being aggressive per se, if somebody runs into a forager, the forager bee's natural instinct is to protect themselves, so they can potentially sting. So try and face them in a direction where it forces their flight path to be a little higher, and make sure you get docile bees. They vary a lot. Just try and get them from a bee breeder that's known for having docile bees. A lot of times if you order bees from the south as an example, or from a mass production bee farm, it's hard to know what you're getting, especially if you don't do your research. But if you find a local beekeeper who's kind of known in the area, as an example in Michigan, there's a few bee breeders, and they tend to have very nice docile bees, but also they're more resilient in their environment that they're raised in. So I would look at that, and if at all possible, keeping them out of the more highly trafficked areas, just so you don't run the risk of being stung. Normally, bees are more protective of the space in front of the hive, where the entrance is, and they're not as protective behind the hive. Just think about that as you're placing them in your property or in your yard. Sometimes what people will do in cities is put them up on roofs if they have a flat top roof, or put them up on something a little higher. If you can do that, that's certainly something that can work and does work for people. But I would say, if you're looking for a rule of thumb, try and keep them 50 or 100 feet away from any high traffic areas or a house, if at all possible. It's not always possible. Some people will keep them right next to their house and they're never a problem. Bees do over time get used to movement around them. So if you get a colony that's sometimes a little bit aggressive in the beginning, they do tend to improve over time as they see activity going on and they realize that it's not a threat.